8th. I hope you guys are all nestled at home and relaxed and listening to our podcast. A lot has transpired this week. I don't know if you guys had a chance to catch any of the speakers at CPAC. I did, and I found them to be extremely refreshing and entertaining. More so because today, or this evening rather, our great President Donald John Trump gave the keynote speech. He was on fire in rare form. I gotta say, I really have missed President Trump. I've missed him. I mean, but he looked refreshed, he looked thin, he looked invigorated, and he's ready. He is ready for the next chapter, and that is to keep making America great again. Because what we see right now, the man who's in the White House right now, Joe Biden, and his sidekick, Kamala Harris, folks, I don't know what's happening there or what isn't happening, but whatever it is, I don't like it. I don't like it at all. Open borders, more talk about people being oppressed, this gender identity politics. And it doesn't get any better with these guys. And not only that, they also want to silence more people. The other day I was watching as the House was holding a meeting talking about kicking or trying to get these cable companies removed from cable TV, Fox News, Newsmax, One American News, because as they put it, there's disinformation. Well, here's my question to them. 4 years, disinformation of Russia collusion. 4 years of lies, spinning, and whatnot. Quiet as it's kept, no one has said anything about it. 4 years of hearing about Michael Brown with hands up, don't shoot, only to find out that wasn't the case. And only recently, the gentleman in, Wisconsin, Kenosha, Wisconsin. He didn't have a knife, he didn't have a weapon, only to find out he's on Good Morning America saying that he did have a weapon. Now talk about disinformation and deplatforming people. Maybe they should look in their own backyard or their front yard. I don't know, but it's getting worse by the minute. That being said, want to open up and letting you guys know that we have a special guest tonight, Barbara from Harlem, best-selling author. Want to welcome her to our virtual show. Looking forward to hearing what she has to say, and I'm telling you, she is a dynamic speaker. She knows what she's talking about. She's written about it in her book. So we're going to discuss that. Without further ado, let me open up the show with my host, Small Town Andrew. How's it going?
It's going well.
And of course, we have our journalist, resident journalist, Heather Robinson. How is it going?
Great. Honored to be here.
And our social media personality, BB Diamond. How's it going?
Hi, great to be here. It's going well. Thank you for having me on. Thank you.
And as I mentioned earlier, our special guest tonight, Barbara from Harlem, the author of Escaping Racism of Low Expectations. Escaping the racism, of low expectations. Barbara, how is it going?
Everything is coming along fine. I mean, after seeing President Trump today, I'm rejuvenated. So happy to see him. Yes.
I think we all were happy. What about you? I mean, I was just ecstatic to see it.
Yes.
After, this, it was wonderful. So let's just get right into things. Barbara, your book, Escaping the Racism of Low Expectations. I have been on your show on Facebook. By the way, she does have a show on Facebook every, I think it's Saturday at 3:30 p.m.
3
o'clock.
o'clock.
You got to catch that show. 3 p.m. You've got to catch it. It is a great show. That's Eastern time. Now, just going back to the book, one of the things I found interesting, well, there are two things that I think our viewers should know about you. One of them is that you're a registered Democrat.
Yes.
And in your book, you said that you were a liberal by default.
Absolutely.
Share that with us. Tell us what you meant by that.
Yes, I didn't even know what liberalism even consisted of, what it meant. But after being a member of several Democratic clubs, it all came to me how anti-American the Democratic Party was, how anti-God they were also. And that's what really turned my life around, realizing that I had been in a club that promoted slavery, that promoted racism, that promoted victimhood. And I wasn't raised to be anybody's victim. I was not raised to just let someone else make decisions for my life. I was raised to love people regardless of the color of their skin. I can't change the past, but one thing I realized, God allowed whatever happened to Black people when they came over here. He allowed it. But what man meant for evil, God meant for good. I have a chapter in my book called Thank God for Slavery. And I really mean every word of it. To be born into the United States of America. This is the greatest land that God ever created, formed, and founded. And for people to try to downplay our greatness, our goodness, it's really irritating. And yes, I was a member of several Democratic clubs, and I heard the same thing from one club to another club to another. Hate, hate, hate. We will take care of you. We have all of the answers. And I couldn't live with that. So I became a conservative back when Rudy Giuliani was running against David Dinkins.
Okay.
That's right. I worked on Giuliani's campaign without anybody knowing it because I was still a member of the Democratic clubs.
So, Barbara, after all these years, why haven't you changed your party affiliation?
Because I'm able to talk with people. I live in urban America. I live in Harlem. I visit Newark, New Jersey, where you have a it's highly populated with Black people. The first thing when I start talking to them about logical things and sensible things in the political area, and I can tell them, oh no, I'm a registered Democrat. This way I get more, they listen to me more deeply. They don't just turn me off because they've been trained to hate the word Republican. They've been trained to reject Republicans. So this way I'm able to walk side by side with them, elbow to elbow, heart to heart. I get their attention, and some of them that I have encountered have changed their minds about their loyalty to the Democratic Party.
Right. And how are you received as a whole when they find out? Because I remember just following you on Facebook, and there have been some instances whereby you've gone to different, I think, doctors' offices, and people have spoken out about Trump. And as you said, you tried to hold your tongue, but at some time just like, wait a minute here. So how have you been received in the community?
I was received better than I thought I would be received.
Okay.
I walked around Harlem, Newark, New Jersey, my little hat on that had a Trump button on it. In all of my travels, there was only one incident with a husband and wife, Black, who were ugly. Other than that, Black people were very receptive of me, very nice. I had one young lady, I went into a pizza store, and she bought my pizza for me. I was in a shopping, and these are all Black people. And I was in a grocery store, and a lady said, Miss, come on in front of me. Come on in front of me. Let me put my groceries on the counter. And she wouldn't even take any money for them. So I was treated very, very, very nicely. And then when people would ask me, well, why are you voting for Donald Trump? I was able to tell them biblically what the Bible says about killing of babies, what the Bible defines as marriage. And it made some of them think. And I have some who said that they voted for the first time in their lives for Donald Trump rather than voting for the candidates in the Democratic club. So I was received wonderfully, with the exception of that one problem with this Black couple. That was it.
Right.
Yes.
Interesting. So,
I
Barbara,
wore my hat. I wore my hat with my Trump button to my doctor's office, the pharmacy, the hospital, wherever I had to go, dentist's office, all over the place.
Right. And no pushback.
No.
Right. Because we know there are a lot of people out there, and they say, be careful, which doesn't make any sense, because if you can walk around with the Joe Biden and Kamala Harris
Yes.
paraphernalia, why can't you walk with President Trump, Trump 45? It makes absolutely no sense. And then they want to demonize conservatives or Trump supporters and say that they're white supremacists and they're this and they're that. It's like, but you guys are the ones who are guilty of attacking Trump supporters.
Well, you're
Not
absolutely
the other way around.
It is, but they don't believe in truth. So they'll never admit that they're the ones with the violent tempers. They're the ones who try to suppress free
Right.
speech. They're the ones that if you don't agree with them, but I even one of my doctors, I went to see my cardiologist, and my cardiologist said, you and I are the only ones in Harlem who are going to vote for Trump. Well, that wasn't completely true, but he was surprised to see me with my Trump cap on.
Right.
Yes.
Right. Well, I can understand that with everything that's going on, or what going on then, and even now, with them trying to demonize this president and say that he's a bad person, when in actuality, he isn't. If anyone we should be afraid of, it should be Joe Biden. And even his own party members are saying that they want to take away the nuclear code from him because they don't trust him. So it's rather interesting how they want to demonize Trump when it is they're the ones that we should be concerned with. My other host that are here, what do you guys say? What would you like to say to Barbara? And I'm going to take up the entire conversation.
Just that it's so wonderful to be on with you, Barbara, and to find like-minded people in other communities. I'm a Jewish Trump supporter. I supported the president. I did initially, but I watched and listened, and I saw what he was doing in the Middle East, and here in our own country. And I felt that the issues were very compelling. Whether you're talking about child smuggling and people who were all in favor of opening up our borders and claiming to care about children, not attending to these horrendous extreme cases of child abuse and child smuggling. People who say they care about peace but would not acknowledge how wonderful and effective he and with the help of his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, was in countries to the table who'd been long enemies in the Middle East. We have no new foreign entanglements, no new wars. These are folks who, I thought cared about peace and humanitarianism. And in terms of the facts, I see less bloodshed, American bloodshed overseas. I saw things that I think in the big picture protected more children in terms of Trump's policies. So for these reasons, among others, I decide to support the president. And the last thing I'll say is just that, it has been difficult finding allies, even in my own community. I respect the right of others to disagree, but I feel there's been such massive propaganda against this man. And people listen, this country's been sold a bill of goods as far as I'm concerned. So it's wonderful to encounter other independent thinkers, and it's just very heartening.
And it's important. I mean, just speaking again, as a Black man, not to go into identity politics, and this whole Trump is the people that are following him are white supremacists. So how the heck can we be white supremacists? But the media will not address that. They will gloss right over it and pretend as if though we don't exist. You look at what's her name, Joy Reid on MSNBC. I mean, she talks 100 miles an hour, and she's always spitting out hateful rhetoric. You would think that she has written the book about Black history, but it's like we come in so many different mindsets. So when Joe Biden made the comment or said or alluded to that, Black people, they're kind of monolithic. They think the same. That's what a lot of Democrats think. White liberals think that, and you have your Black politicians out there thinking the same thing. What do you say, BB Diamond?
Thanks, Rob, for having us on. Good point, Rob. I agree with you. But I'd like to ask Barbara, who is my mother. Barbara, you've lived through Jim Crow. You saw the
Yes.
colored only signs. You saw Malcolm X speak in the 60s. You saw a lot of that because you grew up in part down in Deep South. Is our biggest problem as Black people today racism, or is it the broken home? Because
Good
you've
question.
experienced both, because you had the the shootout with the KKK. So I'd like for you to take a minute just to address that, please, so we can get
Wow,
that
that's a
clear.
good question.
Thank you, Rob.
Yes. Without a doubt, our biggest problem that we face in urban America, Black communities, is the broken home. All we have to do is look at the statistics. Look at the statistics of how many of our children spend time in prison. How many of them? Our children are not being validated. They're not being affirmed because of the broken home. And we can give a lot of the credit for the broken home to the Democratic Party. They promoted and came into Black communities telling Black women, you don't need a man. We will take care of you. We'll give you affordable housing. We'll give you food stamps. We will take care of your children. It takes a village, not a mother and father, to raise a child. And we bought into that, and look what has happened. Look at what's going on in the Black community. And then the thing about it, they act like it's not happening. No one mentions it. They don't even talk about it. We really need to focus on rebuilding the family, having fathers' names on birth certificates, having fathers actively involved in their children's lives. That's our biggest problem. It's not racism. They don't even know what racism is. They've never seen those black and white signs, counted the KKK, and all they want to say is racism. My grandmother, being born in 1898, didn't cry racism 1 minute, and she lived a very comfortable life, owned property. She was an entrepreneur, and so was my grandfather. Racism did not stop them.
So, Barbara, what led you to write this book, this very powerful book?
Well, I have a very persuasive daughter, and you're talking to her, and a son, and they thought some of my experiences I should, capture, and I should share with people. And then what was another impetus was my daughter that you're speaking with now encouraged me to go to college, to get a college degree. And I graduated in 2006. And I couldn't believe what I experienced in that college. So it was worth writing all of this down to let people know what education, it's constant propaganda. I went to a liberal arts college that my baby son graduated from, and my baby son didn't like the school. And I went to that same school, and now I know why. Because they had very low expectations of minority students. They didn't even expect you to be able to read, write, or think. I graduated from that place, that den of iniquity, that's what I called it, with a 4.08 average, because those young people who had just gotten out of high school didn't even know how to read, write papers or anything. Our young minority students were so unprepared for the world. But I had fun with those leftists because I aggravated them. I wrote papers based on the Bible. And I drove them nuts. They were so happy when I graduated to get out of their hair. but a 4.08.
Congratulations.
Yeah. So that's in my book too, that higher propaganda institution that I went to. So but between my daughter and my son, they were the ones who told me, write it down, write a book. So that's how that came about.
Right. No, Andrew, I know you want to jump in here, but I just got one more thing that I want to ask about Barbara, because I remember reading this in the book also, the propaganda of our higher education. And it's really sad because you think of the institutions, Harvard, Yale, Stanford, Princeton, and there's supposed to be places where you would go to think freely, And that's one of the reasons why we encourage children to go or young people to go. But now it's like group think. If you go in, they're feeding you propaganda.
Yes.
And you're coming out with your head on backwards or any which way but the right way. And it's extremely dangerous. So you, a person who's experienced in life, going into these institutions, I mean, I can only imagine, given what you had already gone through in life in Florida, as BB said, staring down the KKK, having to fight them off. You know what racism is like. You know what it's like to be in it. So when you were there in these institutions and hearing this propaganda, what was going through your mind?
Well, I thought they were all crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I wrote the papers that I wrote. I wrote a paper about Phyllis Wheatley. She was the first or the second Black poet who came here as a slave.
Right.
And I had a Black professor because I was quoting the poem, "'Twas God's mercy. 'Twas mercy that brought me from the pagan land." And she hated it. She almost flipped the script. So I told her, I said, well, you're going to have to dig up Phyllis Wheatley and tell her that you don't like her poem. So I aggravated those people. I did that on purpose because what they were doing to these minority students, I couldn't even believe it. Telling them to write papers about how you've been oppressed in America.
Right.
They were teaching them to hate America, hate the country that's given them the opportunity to do things that they couldn't do in other land.
Right.
I had an African teacher who was, what was he teaching? Social justice. I don't know what he was teaching. I forgot. But he hated America. And one day I got sick of him. And I told him, you're not going to do this to these minority students as long as I'm in this class. If you don't like America, pack your bags. I will help you and don't talk about our police department, because in Nigeria, they yank you out of the house, pull you in the street and blow your brains out. So at any rate, I got an A+ from him. I guess my daughter said I frightened him so terribly, but I got an A+ out of that class. But what they do to those students, I couldn't even believe it. But I witnessed it firsthand, and I wrote about it in my book.
And it's really unfortunate. Andrew, go ahead.
Yeah, Barbara, you mentioned earlier that a lot of the youth today don't understand what racism is. What was it like watching the summer and watch so many vandalize Abraham Lincoln statues and all this other terrible instance of rioting and vandalism? And what was it like to watch that unfold over the summer? I'm sure it's not the first time you've seen it on play, but how much would you blame the media now for this division that we see with the Black community and then the rest of America?
I blame a lot of that on a large part on the media, because they lie so tremendously. And they use a lot of Black. I believe that a lot of Antifa, these people who want to destroy America, they don't care about Black people. They just use that so that these young unattached Black youth who don't have the discipline that they need to have in their homes will come out and do their dirty work. I was so heartbroken. I was so disturbed, because what they did was so wrong, so absolutely wrong. But we have a media that is so corrupt, and they've been corrupt for a long time. I used to work for a New York newspaper back in the 70s as a teletype operator. Oh, I'm telling my age. But as a teletype operator, you'll probably never even heard of that. And I used to see what was coming on the teletype, give it to the editors, and I knew what you were getting the next morning. You got a pack of lies. Pack of lies. So since the 70s, I don't buy news that they were fake news. But that was heartbreaking, heart-wrenching, and very disturbing. And how they destroyed even Black businesses. It was just insane. Insane. We have a terrible media outlet. They're not they're propagandists. They don't even report the news. They don't report the facts. I mean, It's really sad to see this going on in America.
In America, and it's going on right before our very eyes, how, as I mentioned in my opening, how they want to cancel out Fox News, One American News, and Newsmax because they're saying, oh, disinformation. But you look at the disinformation coming from these people. And when you see journalists like the Gemma Costa, who's been promoted as fake news CNN, I mean, the stuff that they keep regurgitating over and over again. I mean, I must say, as a journalist, and I'm sure Heather will agree with me, when I saw Soledad O'Brien on TV at a House hearing complaining about Fox and saying that they should be deplatformed, that they're full of disinformation, and then one of the Republican senators questioned her and said, did you cover the Michael Brown story? And she said, no. He said, are you sure? She said, no. He said, okay, did you give any commentary? And she said, no. And then he put up on the screen a Twitter feed where she had said that Michael Brown had said, hands up, don't shoot. And he said, you do realize that this has been proven to be a lie, that it never happened. And this was discovered under Barack Obama's attorney generals. And she was completely silent.
Right.
I'm like, here she is trying to silence the competitor or fellow journalist when she is guilty of the crime that she says that they're guilty of. It's really sad. And as you said, you know, me having worked in a newsroom and seeing the disinformation, the stories that come out, how they're biased, we have got to get back to the basics. Yes, we have a free media, but with it comes accountability. And you just can't willy-nilly report on things like yellow journalism and think that it's okay, because it's not okay. So I applaud you and I commend you, Barbara, for coming out with the book, Escaping Racism, The Expectation. I commend you because if our stories aren't out there, if they're not coming to you, a person, a Black woman who experienced this.
Oh, yes.
With the gun, staring at the KKK, looking at the marches. That's racism.
Yes, it is.
Who were they? Democrats. But now they want to say wearing a Make America Great Again Trump cap is racist. They want us to think that. They want the young people that are coming up in our schools. There's a young lady now who's getting ready to run for, I think, to be a member of the Manhattan, president. And she went into this thing about what she's doing for the schools and whatnot. So I responded to her today, as a matter of fact. And I said, I want to know your thoughts on Black Lives Matter and white privilege. I said, because if you ascribe to those thoughts, my support for you is a resounding no.
Right.
Because it's ridiculous that people who are saying that, hey, Black Lives Matter and white privilege, I'm like, they are the most racist individuals out there. You cannot build up one by tearing down the other. Plain and simple. Just can't happen.
Right. But that's all they know is to tear down. They call people what they actually are, because they're the ones who are the racists. And what I like to do is I like many times when I'm talking with people in my area or wherever, I like to give them the historical background of the Democratic Party.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are so shocked because this stuff has been hidden from them. And with the broken homes, you don't have a father and a mother educating their children in the home. So when they go to school, they go jump over all of that. But a lot of Black people don't even know the racist history of the Democratic Party. Even during the Civil War, they don't know that the Democratic Party wanted slavery all throughout the United States, all throughout the colonies. And that was part of why we had a civil war. So it's terrible. Yeah, miseducation and no education about the truth of many of these matters, because unfortunately, the people on the left, the leftists, are great liars. As they breathe, they lie.
That is so true.
That's my take on it.
And I like that, the miseducation. We did a show about that once, the miseducation of Blacks, the miseducation of liberals, the miseducation of our youth who are being fed these lies that Black people are being constantly oppressed. It's like, why do we always
Right.
need a group of people that are oppressed? I don't feel oppressed. I don't want to be oppressed. Oppressed
No.
people get nowhere. There always has to be a victim, just like the young lady the other day at Smith College who lied and said that she was found guilty for eating while being Black.
Right.
And the individuals at the school, the custodial worker, the janitor, all of them lost their livelihood. Their lives were ruined because of her lie. And to
Yeah.
this day, this night, she is yet to come out and apologize. She's yet to be held accountable. This cannot
Right.
continue. And you see this happening just whenever there's a story that comes out with a white person did this to a Black person. I always save judgment. I'm like, I want to get to the facts. I remember the late, great Kobe Bryant when this whole Michael Brown situation took place.
Right.
They were asking for his opinion. And he said, I don't want to say anything. I want to hear the facts. I want to wait until everything is out there.
Right.
A lot of people got mad at him. But you can't be so quick to run to judgment and say, oh, this person is guilty when you don't know the full story. And we see that has been happening quite a bit.
Well,
You
they
see
always
these-
do that.
Yeah. You see these stories in the paper about this person did this to a Black person. But then when you start investigating and hearing the real story, it's something completely different.
They
What
did
did you
that with
guys say?
Trayvon Martin. They did that with Trayvon
Yes.
Martin. I took a trip down to Sanford, Florida, and I pretended I was a reporter. I do some things sometimes.
Well, you are. You're more of a
You're
reporter.
reporting the truth. Yes. Citizen
Yeah.
journalist.
So I
Very-
stopped 5 Black men and I asked them, I said, well, what are your thoughts about what happened with Trayvon Martin and George Zimmerman? You know what? All of them said, you know what? I don't have a job because Mexicans have my job. This was in Sanford, Florida. I had them all to not even think about the Trayvon Martin. And that's what I was asking them. They were concerned about paying their truck note, car note, house note, because the Mexicans were coming into Sanford, Florida and taking their jobs. And I told people, when people would say, oh, isn't that terrible? I said, wait until we get all of the facts before we make a decision, before we come to a conclusion. You see, they'll automatically jump on something just to turn it into an issue of race because they want us to be divided by race.
Right.
But we cannot let them win that. Just like Dr. King said, not the color of your skin, but the content of your character. And we, the people, need to be united, regardless of our skin color. We need to fight these leftists who want to turn this into a socialist nation, period.
And Barbara, what happened to the content of our character? We have wandered so far away from
Yes,
that.
we have. Yes.
I mean, it's like looking at the skin color. And King clearly said, content of character. I would
That's
venture
correct.
to say that the content of a lot of character is questionable. It's extremely questionable.
Absolutely. Well, you see, the left has made lying very popular, like it's funny. That's why, we have people that just lie for no reason at all.
Yeah.
They've made it popular and it's supposed to be a joke. It's not a joke. It's serious. You see, I don't even see too many people who are, in my little circle, upset about even this election when all of this lying and fraud went on.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
All of this tallying overseas. In New York, I'm voting and my ballot is in Chinese.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Chinese.
And if you say something about it, if you say anything about it, oh, you're just disinformation. It's like,
Right.
wait,
Yeah.
disinformation was Russia collusion.
Yes.
That was a
Yes.
disinformation.
Yes.
If you guys can say that, talk about it for, and then all the other lies about Trump children, it's like, when does it stop? That's the disinformation.
Oh, most definitely. Most definitely. Well, when I was in the doctor's office and there was this Black young man talking about, Trump this. So I said, I hear you saying some disparaging things about our president. I said, let me ask you, is your name on your children's birth certificates? I said, his children are well taken care of. He's leaving them a legacy. Anyway, to make a long story short, every man that I approached that with, whether they were Black or whether they were white, they shut up, shut down, and ran away from me.
You have to
All
hit them
right,
with the
every
truth.
one of them.
You have to hit them with the truth.
That's what I do.
Absolutely. BB, you want to get in here?
Sorry about that. I'll give my time to Heather. Heather, and I'll come back later. Thank you, Rob.
Sure. Go ahead, Heather.
Well, I had a couple questions I wanted to ask Barbara to get your take.
Okay.
Barbara, do you feel that there are any parallels between Antifa and the KKK, the way these groups operate? Because to me, I haven't encountered the KKK personally, and just aspects of the way this is working. What I see is the terrorizing of people in their homes, the ganging up. It reminds me of the KKK, and I wondered what you thought.
Well, I think that they're even worse than the KKK. Now, the KKK did damage, but I don't even, when last time I looked it up, it said that during their biggest times and their most popular times, they maybe lynched close to 4,000 people. Look at what Antifa and Black Lives Matter, what they're doing to America. People are dying. They're destroying property. They're trying to destroy the family. They're trying to destroy everything that makes America great and exceptional. So I personally think that they are worse.
What do you think when you say that they lie? To me,
Yes.
It seems like a lot of people are not conscious that they're lying, or they're not trying to lie. I think they're brainwashed. I think they believe they're doing good. And that to me is one of the most chilling aspects of this leftist upsurge across the country. I won't say the hard left. It's not most liberals, but this yes, everything from attacking. So it's like, how can groups destroy businesses, minority owned businesses,
right,
and believe this is for the good of Black people? How can a child, be killed, a little girl, Sequoia Turner, by protesters, people who were protesting supposedly police brutality?
Right.
Child.
Right.
How you think when you see this, how deep is the brainwashing? How you think once things like that start to happen, people would say, look, it was a good idea, it started with one thing, but clearly it's degenerating into something else and we got to stop. But yet it doesn't seem to sink in that there's evil being done in the name of good. And I just wondered, as you, as someone who's seen a lot and has the wisdom, am I crazy? I mean, and if down is up and up is down, how do we combat? How do we reason with people? It's not that they're all bad. But it's so scary. They believe they're humanitarian. They are good. That how do you even talk to them about it or make a difference?
Well, some you're able to talk with, and some won't listen to anything. I have an ex pastor friend in Atlanta, Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
I've been talking to him since 2018 about the upcoming election, for Trump. And finally, after November 3rd, he called me 6 times because I didn't want to return his call, because I knew once he called me after November the 3rd, he wanted to gloat. Mm-hmm. So in other words, I knew then that all of that talking, myself and my daughter, who lives down in Atlanta, talked to him with the Bible, etc., etc. And he's a pastor. So finally on, January the 18th, I called him. And he did just what I thought he was going to do. He gloated. So I started giving him the Bible. Now, this is a pastor. Not one time did he say, well, that does say that in the Bible. He ignored it. So finally, at the end of our conversation, he said, I don't want to read anything, because I suggested to him, I said, why don't you read the Mayflower Compact? And then you can find out the beginnings of this nation. He says, I don't want to read anything. I don't want to learn anything. I got to go. So unfortunately, people like him are not teachable. Mm-hmm. 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 And you just have to, I'm finished with him. He's been a so-called family friend for many years, but I'm through with him. Because if he doesn't even obey God, I can't respect him as a pastor. I will not. You know, so some are teachable. That's why I say my remaining a Democrat. I have people now who still call me who have changed their minds about the Democratic Party, because I had one, she started talking about sharp tongue. I call him sharp tongue. And I told her, and she's a churcher, I told her I have no respect for him. He's not a man of God. So she was shocked when I said that. But we have developed a relationship where now she understands why. Now she analyzes what he says. See, she's been a trained Democrat all of her life. She lives in the projects. She's been a victim all of her grown adult life. She fell prey to that. Now she's just beginning, because of our conversations, because I don't pull any punches, but I just tell it like it is. And now she analyzes what's being said. She analyzes the news. She still listens to Sharpton, but then she'll call me to tell me how many lies he told.
Well, good for you. Yeah, so, I mean, I hear you. Some people, it's like it seems hopeless.
Some of them are hopeless. Yes,
you know, are not so far gone. But just the idea that when you actually see people being killed, you see things being done in the name of lives or in the name of truth and justice. And like, to give an example from our side, we understand the Capitol riot went too far. It turned into something evil. It became a mob. You know, we may have understood the feelings and what drove it had some legitimacy, but then it took a bad, terrible turn. But I think that there's this, the brainwashing on the other side is so deep, they can't see, you know, when people are being hurt and killed, and that's the part that I don't want to be hyperbolic, but that's the part that does remind me a little of Nazism and fanaticism. Right. It's the kind of thing that young woman got in trouble for saying the other day, the woman who was accused of anti-Semitism. Forgive me, I don't remember her name. She's a former wrestler, Gina, or anyway, she was banned from Disney, canceled her from the show, and her daughter was banned. And anyway, I think she wasn't trying to say anything positive about Nazis. She was analogizing the treatment of Trump supporters and the level of brainwashing against them to what happened in Germany. And even though I get that some Jewish people were offended by the invocation of Nazism, I understood what she was trying to say.
Got you. Right.
You know, it's like you just feel like, as a thinking person, are you alone? Are you crazy? Like, you know, what's the Alice in Wonderland? Like, it's like, have we fallen down the rabbit hole?
The rabbit hole, right?
Yes.
How do you talk to people? So anyway, thank you for.
Yeah, it can be very difficult, you know, and it can be very disheartening. But I do what I can when I can do it. And like, I'll tell some of them have nothing to say. I said, well, you know, if I knowingly voted for someone who believed in killing babies, I would never call myself a Christian again. And most of the people I say that to, they walk away from me. They don't say yay, they don't say nay. But, you know, I say to myself, maybe that's giving them something to think about. Maybe it's penetrating. They don't argue with me. They don't call me names. They just walk away. And I'm happy.
Right.
Right. Barbara, you've been around for a while and seen a lot of presidents come and go. Back in 2007, I was only 19 years old, but I wasn't real thrilled with George Bush and the wars and all that. So I had a lot of hope with Barack Obama when he ran the first time. I was quickly let down. I was only like 20 years old, and I had to start paying for the honor of not having health insurance with the Obamacare when that went through. It was a disaster. Would you say that, did you catch on early that Barack Obama sold a lot of lies in his campaign? And would you say that with the rise of Black Lives Matter during his administration, he actually set back race relations?
Yes, he did. Yes, he did. Well, I looked up his 2007 senatorial record. From that, I said that this man does not love America. This man is not, he doesn't even like God. And he pledged on his 2007 senatorial record 100% support for Planned Parenthood. So I sent out an anonymous flyer, thousands of them, in New York, New Jersey, Florida, and where else? In Florida. You know, I put rubber gloves on so you couldn't find my fingerprints or anything. I called him the poster boy of the godless. And then when I went to visit in Florida, I would stop and talk with some white people. And I told him, I told particularly this one white guy, I said, you know, he's a racist. He doesn't like you. But anyway, this white guy said he was going to vote for him. But I didn't vote for Obama. I didn't trust him. I didn't like him. And I knew he didn't like America. Like I said, he was the poster boy of the godless. My daughter, when she saw that flyer, she told me, she says, oh, Mama, that is so rough. But I told her I'm not going to change it because I felt that he was a poster boy of the godless. And sure enough, he proved me right. Because now they're coming out of the woodworks and letting us know how godless they are. He won 2 terms.
Yes.
As a godless heathen who hated America, who's a racist, who is confused, who tried to stir up race relationships. They played on white guilt.
Yep.
They played him, they played a lot of people for him to be elected twice in America. And he did a lot of damage because he doesn't like this country.
You know, and I just want to add to that, Barbara, get your thoughts on this also, because now you see that he's trying to come back after getting all this money, and he has a podcast with Bruce Springsteen.
Yes.
And he's saying that he was for reparations, although in 2008, 2005, and before then, he said that he wasn't for reparations and that there were other ways to help blacks out. And not only that, and I think that black people need to know this, and black people and liberals that are so in love with this guy, is that when he was elected to be the senator, never once would he caucus with the Congressional Black Caucus. He looked the other way. He felt that they were separatists. He felt that, no, you can't get anything done by working independently. And they didn't like him. But now all at once, it's a kumbaya moment for he and Michelle. She's coming out with, oh, well, you know, we have marriage problems. We have to go to counseling. I mean, she says all these little wag the dog tails, thinking that, oh, I know black women, they can identify with this. And my liberal white women, they can identify with this. Oh, yeah, we had problems. And I was in lust with him and this and that. And then for Barack Obama, he's coming out saying, I smashed a boy in his nose for calling me a coon. I wanted reparations, but it was the white elitists that didn't want this. It's like, wait a minute, you can't be a history revisionist. You're trying to rewrite history. All these things that you're saying now, you never thought about them. They weren't in any of your books. And as someone keeps pointing out, and I believe it now, that he didn't write those books. I don't think he has the intellectual capacity to write the books. That he did not write the books that he keeps putting his names on. And now he has come out with a 500+ page book. The man is only 59 or 58 years old. What the heck does he have to write about?
I mean, all of this is bogus. They just want to make more money. This is, all of this is fraudulent, bogus crap. I mean, he did nothing for America. I mean, America was suffering. Businesses were leaving, et cetera, et cetera. He was a horror.
Yeah.
A plain horror. And he played that race card. And he, wanted us to be divided. He tried to divide us. Y'all are clinging to your Bibles and your guns and all of these things, these negative things.
Yep.
Right.
And he's behind what's going on in the White House today.
Yes, he is.
If we don't think that he is playing a role in all of this crap, then we're fooling ourselves.
Absolutely.
Rob, may I just hop in? And I want to ask Barbara, Mom a question, because I think
Yes.
it's an explosive chapter when you say thank God for slavery. Can you just in a
Oh yeah.
minute
Yep.
please explain what you mean by that,
Yes.
please? Thank you.
Well, what really struck me is that my Uncle Richie, in the book, I explained how my Uncle Richie first said that to me. And as a young woman, it shocked me. Why would he say that? Slavery was so horrible, blah, blah, blah. Then I went back to see Uncle Richie, and he told me, he says, well, his grandmother, who was my great grandmother, every time he saw her when she was picking peas, she had her Bible and all of that. And, I just started thinking, and him and I talked. He said, if it hadn't been for slavery, where would you be? Where would I be? And then, it started registering. Slavery was bad and horrible and mean and wicked, but God allowed it. Then I referred to the Bible, the story about Joseph. Joseph was sold into slavery by his own brothers. He suffered, he went to prison, etc., etc. But he rose to a high position in Egypt. And when his brothers had to come because they needed, finally, when they recognized who he was, and they were frightened because they thought he was going to exact revenge upon them. What Joseph told them, what you meant for evil, God meant for good. And he looked back on his time there in Egypt when he was sold into slavery. He knew that God was always with him. I started relating that and translating that over to what the slaves felt. The slaves, they were very religious. They even started their own churches. They believed in long-term marriages, etc., etc. The slaves came over here, and they like Phyllis Wheatley, she became a Christian. She believed in the God of the Bible. What man meant for evil, God meant for good. Because here it is, I'm Black, and I'm born in the best country in the world. My in to South America, because when they were transporting slaves, particularly the Muslims, they took them all over the world. But my forefathers and foremothers were planted right here in America. And that's why I say, thank God for slavery. Where would I be now? And then you say, oh, well, that's a horrible thing to say. Well, why are people who are darker than me trying to get over here? Leaving their mothers, leaving their children in many cases, to get to the shores of America, taking planes, taking boats, taking anything that they can paddle and get over here. So thank God that I was born here. Thank God I don't need a green card. Thank God for slavery.
Gosh, Barbara, that's really powerful because I've never thought of it that way. Never
Yes.
thought of it. You mentioned that earlier on. I had a little note that I was going to ask you. I'm glad that BB Diamond brought it out, but that's really interesting.
Yes.
Thank you for sharing that.
What man meant
Thank you for sharing it.
for evil, God meant for good.
Absolutely. And just one more. I'm sorry, BB, were you done? Was that your only question?
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
And I just want to bring this up also, speaking of, like you said, you could have been born in Jamaica or some other place. And then I think about the border wall and what the Democrats are doing. They don't want the border wall on our southern border, but they want a border, the United States Capitol, to make it for the perception that Republicans are bad, that Republicans are going to cause some insurrection, the Republicans are going to do this, and Republicans are going to do that. And I was doing some research. And little as it's known, or little as it's told or reported on, that right now, to America, is Joe Biden them back? Now, this is the man who says, oh no, we want the culture. We want all the people to come here because we're all one. And we want this. And, white people don't want the Mexicans because they're racist. But look at the Haitians. He's not the first president to do it. Bill Clinton did the same thing.
Yes.
Put the Haitians on the boat, send them back out in the ocean, and some of them drowned.
Wow.
Bush, however, did not do it. He wanted them to come here. But it's so interesting that the Democrat presidents have turned their back on Haitians. Why? Do they not think that they want to be part of the American dream? What is it about the Haitians that they don't like? Absolutely.
They're racist. That's
Absolutely.
why they call everybody else what they really are. They're the ones who are the racist.
Yes.
That's
Quiet
all
as
there
it's
is
kept,
to it.
and Black people
Yes.
are completely unaware of it.
Absolutely.
They're completely unaware, and they're taking on the fights of Mexicans. It's like, but wait a minute. Look at the other group of people that they're turning their backs on.
I know.
We have been deceived, the miseducation of Blacks. And it's
Oh,
really
definitely.
sad. It's really
It
sad.
is. It is. Well, you know, people like you who keep it out there and keep doing what you're doing, prayerfully, some of them will come out of that fog because they've been in a fog too long.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And they'll start thinking and saying, well, 1 and 1, that'll make 2.
Mm-hmm.
They'll start putting those little dots together.
Right.
And especially when, as we expose the Democratic Party for their history of racism throughout their history.
Right.
And I mean, it's documented. You know, they can try to rewrite history, but they can't twist the truth. The truth is the truth. The party of racism, they are the Democrats.
Right. And they have to be exposed. We cannot allow them to
Absolutely.
continue on. And as you said, I mean, your shows and shows like this and others that are out there, you know,
Yes.
trying to get the truth, as much as they try to silence us,
Suppress
keep us
it,
silent,
right.
suppress the truth, don't want to
Yes.
hear it. We have to keep going and fighting and making certain that the truth is put out there.
True.
Because they don't
That's
like
our
it.
job.
Absolutely. They don't
Yes.
like it, but we have to keep going.
Absolutely.
Any other thoughts from my panel?
No, powerful. Thanks for having Barbara on. I know I'm biased, but powerful. And I do think she needs to run for Congress because I do think there needs to be an awakening, particularly in the Black community. And I just hope and pray that conservative media like you guys, thank you for doing what you're doing, Rob and Andrew, for
Amen.
keeping this going. We need to be able to impact the greater or wider society to educate them about what a conservative means, because really what it means is being a patriot. That's all it really essentially means. But thank you for having Barbara on. Thank you for having us on. Thank you.
Thank you very
much. I have on the screen information about Barbara, where you can get her book on Amazon. If you would like a signed copy, there's information there as to where you can contact Barbara from Harlem to get a signed copy of her book. I must say it is a great read. You can also get it on Kindle. So reach out to Barbara. And like I said, her show is on every Saturday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. You don't want to miss it. Mark your calendars and definitely support Barbara from Harlem as she takes this fight forward and she spreads the word of conservatism, because we need more people like Barbara out there. Barbara, do you have any closing comments?
Well, I just want to thank you so much, all of you, for what you do and give in. We will make a difference, you know, maybe one by one, but, you know, we're going to make a difference. You know, it's not in vain. America is worth fighting for. Thank you so very much for this time. Thank you for the exposure, for my book. And I just pray for the best for America and all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Have a good night.
You have a very blessed one. All of you.
Yes.
You as well. Thank you.
Amen.
Barbara, it was so wonderful to hear you.
Oh, Heather, likewise. Thank you so much. You're so sweet and kind.
Yes,
Thank
you.
Call him like I see him.
Huh?
I call him like I see him.
Yeah, that's what we have to do. No time to sugarcoat anything. This is the real world. Yes. But it was very insightful. Thank you.
Yes. Good night, Barbara.
Good night. Good night. Good night. What's that, Andrew, right?
Yes. Yes.
Good night, Andrew.
Good night, Barbara. It's nice meeting
you. Good night. What's his name?
Leave.
All right. Leave. Where? Okay.
Okay, well, that was really a great interview, very insightful. We want to thank Barbara from Harlem for coming on. And as I said, we have her information up. Anyone would like to get in contact with Barbara or like a signed copy of Barbara's book. So it's now at the top of the hour, but I think that we're going to stay on a little while longer just to discuss some current events and whatnot, if you guys are okay for staying on. Heather, you're good?
Mm-hmm.
So, well, I'm glad, because one of the things I definitely want to get your take on again is this saga about The Bachelor. And I mean, it just keeps, it just won't stop. And now we see that there's a new host.
I saw something about that. Yes.
I don't know if he was a former Bachelor, if he was on the show or not, but he's an NFL, a former NFL player. So they've tapped him.
Okay.
I think what happened to Chris Harrison is a misjustice. But what I don't get is that you have him and you have Rachel both coming out saying that, oh, we did something wrong. And I'm like, what did you do wrong? Are you apologizing for being born white? It's like, what did you do wrong?
I read that.
I don't get it.
She said she wrote something about beyond just her initial apology was to ask people who are defending her to please stop defending her. So it wasn't enough to issue this whole Maoist sort of apology. She then needed to further abase herself. I haven't read. I didn't quite realize that the Bachelor. That okay. I didn't realize that there was more from Chris. But I mean, to me, it's just the whole thing. I mean, I don't understand why she and everyone didn't just say, look, people have the right to their feelings. You know, maybe they don't like this kind of party. Maybe it wasn't smart. Maybe it wasn't, sensitive. But I would appreciate a little compassion because we've all made mistakes or something like that, instead of this kind of abasement that, yes, I am a racist. Yes. I mean, to me, just the overall idea that we're supposed to believe she's a racist when she's falling in love with a black man on national TV and her father isn't white is just sort of on its face doesn't make any sense to me. And I'm not saying that, the party was right or that I wasn't there. But to me, it's just, it lies in the face of common sense. It's like we're being told, don't believe your lying eyes, believe what some anonymous blogger who apparently, from the look of it, doesn't seem to be a person of color. It seems like a white girl from high school posted some stuff. So we're supposed to give credence to that and to these photos, over the present day reality. So the whole thing just, it seems kind of surreal to me. And in terms of the latest, I don't know much about who they've chosen, but if we're supposed to believe there's any reality in reality TV, it looked like, the Bachelor and Rachel liked each other a lot and were, very into each other. So.
Right. Well, I mean, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And as you said, as far as the party, the antebellum party, from reading it and looking at the pictures, the word antebellum, they associate it with, white supremacists. Again, go figure. Now, and if we're to do that, will we later on come back and say, okay, all Halloween parties were demonic or they were offensive because other people don't celebrate Halloween? All the Christmas parties that we've had, they were also wrong. I mean, of course, some companies call them the holiday parties. I mean, we are trying to become so politically correct and go through history and try to erase things, and you can't do it. I mean, this mob that's trying to sanitize history, it's ridiculous. History is dirty. History is ugly. But we learn from history. History can be beautiful. People are produced from history. People learn from history. Things are made out of history. But trying to go through and cherry pick and say this was wrong and that was wrong, it's all over the map, because I tell you, at some point, the history police, politically correct police, they're going to go after Martin Luther King and a lot of the other Black icons. People are flawed characters.
Yeah.
And we have to be careful when we start trying to silence people or attack people. Now, this guy, Chris Harrison, I mean, I saw his interview with the first Rachel, the Black Bachelor, and he was just, saying, hey, we need to wait. We all make mistakes. And I'm like, but what mistake did she make? She was in college. She attended a party. It was called the Antebellum Party. I'm sure right now in Louisiana and Mississippi, there are probably social clubs, and they're having antebellum parties. Look at the group, Lady Antebellum. They decided to change their name because it was offensive. I am not offended by these things. I am offended by what's happening now? Do you think that I am so weak and I am so oppressed that when I hear words like that I'm just going to just like pass out and start crying? I am more offended when I am listening or I'm walking on the streets and I hear someone blasting rap music and they're saying the N word and every other word. I am more offended when I'm walking outside and I hear Cardi B's song WAP come on and I see little kids weaving and bopping to it. I am offended by that. I'm not offended by some party that took place years ago or some universities having an antebellum party or a Southern party. Okay, if you're from the South, that's part of your heritage. So we're now saying that we've got to erase that? I mean, it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Things that we say that we're offended by. Why aren't people offended when you listen to all this rap music? Are we going to go through and sanitize the rap music? I remember back in I think it was the 80s, when Tipper Gore wanted to put a label on a lot of the rap music because she said it was explicit. And people, oh, no, you can't do that. Now you're going in and you're trying to, that's free speech. But I'm like, but look at what we're doing now. And it's all centered around white people are bad, white people, white people. I mean, the country is so obsessed with making white people pay for something that they had nothing to do with. It has to stop. And I said this once before about Barack Obama, and I was going to bring it up with Barbara from Harlem, and we got into other areas of the conversation. But we need a statesman to come out and say it has to stop. That we're taking this way too far. I mean, I had thought that Barack Obama would be that person. But after his recent comments, I'm like, he's far from being able to come out and bring us all together because he continues to divide and to separate us with his rhetoric. And because people can't see through him, they can't see that this guy is all about a buck and how much money he can make and wanted to be the first billionaire president to leave the office. That's what he wants, he and his wife. She's coming out now with some other claim that people were against her. It's like, when does it stop for these two? They were in the White House for 2 terms, 8 years, and now they're just making up stuff as to what people did to them. It's like, it's ridiculous. When does it stop? I don't know. But it's sad. It's really sad.
I admire your courage, Rob. And, I feel like there are a lot of things that I can't really comment on because I'm not, maybe there is, I can accept that people have another view. People may be very offended by this party, for instance, the antebellum stuff. I mean, I guess, I was trying to imagine if I knew somebody had gone to a party where people were dressed as Nazis, and I was hanging out, and I would be offended.
But Heather, when you say Nazi, that's a huge stretch. Nazi antebellum, because if you look it up, you can Google antebellum homes, and they'll show you this huge house. But what is happening is that Black people are told you associate that huge house with slavery. Okay, but what about the Black people who had the huge antebellum homes? What about the Black people now who live in Louisiana, who live in Arkansas, where I'm from, who have these huge homes for historical purposes? And to say that they're racist? Yes, there might have been slave owners living there, okay? But that was the design of the home during that time frame. So I can't attach that to say like Nazi. If someone were to have a Nazi party, that's wrong. Now, if someone were to say, okay, we're going to have a okay, that's wrong. But to have and to wear the big dresses and then to racism, when more than likely there are Black people right now that are probably doing that. There are Black people right now that wore the big dresses, that live in those big homes. There was a movie that came out called Eve's Bayou. They lived in a huge antebellum home in Louisiana. So are we now going to go back and say that was a bad movie? I mean, it just doesn't stop. They're trying to equate things and try to redefine it because they don't like it. Because I think this whole thing is to keep him from picking a white girl. To be honest with you, they want his mom is white.
And her dad is looks Hispanic to me.
Okay.
Or he looks Indian or Hispanic. Nobody has mentioned that at
Right.
all.
Well, and they won't. And they're, I mean, he came out, did an interview. His mom is white.
Yeah, I don't think she's pure white, Rachel. I mean, she has sort of olive skin, and her father looks very dark skin. It's
Well, I'll have to research it. I'll have to research it. But I mean,
thing. It's like you're looking on TV. Here's her dad. Her dad looks like a dark-skinned man. And
what is her last name? Rachel.
Well, and then she has sort of an Irish-sounding last name, Kirkconnell. So
I was going to look it up. Yeah.
But not that it should matter, of course, really. But it's just, how is it possible? I mean, you see her on camera with her dad. They seem to have a loving relationship, and he doesn't look white. And so, I mean, I'm honestly confused. It's like, as you say, maybe it was more kind of a impressionistic. I mean, look, Rob, you're a brilliant man and you're a poet, and you think in terms of the full range of possibilities that, in terms of interpretation. And I hear you. This is their mindset, is a censorship mindset. It's a fundamentalist. Yeah. It's like you hear a word. It reminds me a little bit of what you hear that the mullahs in Iran do, or that people do in totalitarian states with blasphemy laws. Like, because there's a certain word, the book must be set on fire. I mean, it seems like that kind of mindset. It's like, here's something that reminds us of a time frame where these horrors occurred, so that's enough, regardless of what the intent was of the people who had the thing or did. And I hear you that it's not a nuanced approach, but it's the times we're in. It's like a kind of fundamentalism this generation is embracing.
Okay, I'm looking it up now, and it says that some are saying that he's Hispanic. The whole, like you said, it shouldn't matter. It's ridiculous. It is ridiculous. This whole thing with the color thing we have got to get beyond it. But right now, the powers that be, they keep pushing it. They keep pushing this whole narrative of skin tone, skin color, and gender. I mean, look at what we're going through right now with this Equality Act and the people that it's going to affect. Here's my position. I don't care if you're male, female, straight, tri, bi, whatever. Okay, there are only two genders if we follow the science. That's it. There's no in between. Now, you can go in and you can try to change your gender. That's your business. But to deny me the right to say that I am a man, I am a male, and to say that is wrong, you're the wrong person. You are wrong. I was reading a piece the other day that they were saying that men can't say that they're man. There was someplace. I'm like, are you serious? It just doesn't make any sense.
Comical. It's getting comical. I mean,
right. It's like you're creating a tinderbox. I can't say it, but we can say trans all day long. I was looking at Marjorie Taylor Greene. A person on the Hill next to her came out and put up some flag or some story talking about trans. She came out and put up a sign saying male and female. That, oh, she's bad.
Yeah, I saw.
Are there people in corporate America that just don't get it, or they're afraid? What do you say, Andrew? I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah, it seems crazy to me that we see so many people pander to what's like less than 1% of the population, like all these people who act like trans don't have rights in this country. It's America. Everyone has rights. They can go out to eat together. They can get jobs, so on and so forth. So, yeah, and the thing with the girls having men compete in their sports is just completely ludicrous. I mean, some of these girls have worked their entire lives to reach the pinnacle of their sport. And then in college and high levels like that, all of a sudden they're forced with having to face people of the opposite sex who genetically just are not up to par. So yeah, it's just really sad situation what we're seeing going along here. And President Trump even brought this up in his speech today. He said Joe Biden has a war on women.
Yeah, that's the war on women is coming from the left, with them trying to put all these people, well, no, you can't do this. And the good point that you made, Andrew, is that you have these girls who have waited for this day all their lives. They have competed only to find out that they're not going to get that scholarship. because a transgender is going to get it. It's not fair. It simply isn't fair. And if you mention it, if you call it out, you're attacked and you're told, oh, well, you don't like this person or you feel threatened. It's like, that's not it at all. It just doesn't make any sense. Why would we want these individuals to suffer when we know, hey, this is their sport? I remember at one point they were saying that they wanted Serena Williams to play a guy. It's like, no, why should she? The man is going to always win. This one kid I saw on TV the other night, she's been running track for, ever since she was like, I think in grade school or middle school. And she said, but my brother, who doesn't run, whenever we race, he beats me. She said, so I don't want to go and, try competition with trans guys. It simply isn't fair. And it's like, what are we trying to prove? What exactly are we trying to do? Simply because we say it's not right doesn't mean that we don't like you. We're just saying that it's not fair. So what is the end game? Why can't I say that I'm a male? It's like there's an attack on men. You can't say it. Well, what am I supposed to say? You just say you're an it. Is this country the only country that's having this identity crisis?
Well, you could look at it as a kind of, I hesitate to say this because myself, it's not something I know a lot about, admittedly, and I believe it may be the case that there is a rare psychological and maybe biological issue, transgenderism. But, a lot of this that has sort of just exploded in recent years. I was just talking with a friend about it over the weekend that, maybe there have always been some unusual, unique people, the world's full of all kinds of issues and problems and unusual one in a million things. But why all of a sudden would there be suddenly many, many, many more people? Why would transgenderism be ubiquitous? And it does seem like there is a kind of embracing of this, including, I know that Rand Paul spoke, I think, this past week, and he was questioning a nominee to a position in the federal government, Rachel Levine, who was in charge of things here in Pennsylvania, the vaccination rollout, is a transgender. She was a man and she became a woman. And, he was asking her about, I think, some of her activism, connecting with young children. And he was expressing skepticism about the idea that prepubescent children should be exposed to these ideas and to hormone blockers. And he cast the whole thing. And again, this is not necessarily my position. I don't know a lot about it. But he cast it, in terms of genital mutilation that goes on in other countries. That's part of their culture, we're told. But we take a stand against that, especially with regard to minors. We say that is not a matter of debate or, it's not acceptable to do that to a little girl in Africa. And so, he put this in terms of that and said, we should not be, one thing for an adult to do something that he or she feels it's important and they're right, but to in any way allow a child to hormonally or surgically alter, his or her healthy body, he was questioning it in terms of a human rights kind of perspective. So, just putting it out there that I thought that was an interesting point of view.
Interesting. I think it's the assistant secretary of health or something, who is saying that they should be able to take hormonal, to block puberty, pills to block puberty. And I'm completely against it because, these are kids. And as a kid might come out and say, I'm a cat. I want to be a cat. Okay, so do we say, okay, let's have a surgery. Let's make this kid look like a cat? Because for the first 2 years, the kid wanted to be a cat. And now the kid grows up and says, oh, I'm not a cat. I mean, I don't want to sound as if though I'm, against people living their full lives or whatnot, but I think that it's very dangerous when young people who are in puberty is already difficult.
Yes, yes.
But when you're in a transition and you're unable to have a conversation with someone, to talk this through, you're just told, okay, put you on the pill and you'll be okay because this is what you want. Only to find out years later that you're depressed and you don't want that. I was reading somewhere that the number of individuals who have had these transitions at such a young age, they are so completely depressed, and the suicide rate, but we're never told about the suicide rate. And the reason being is that you have liberal psychologists and psychiatrists who are out there doing all the writings, and their writings are the ones that are put into these medical journals.
Yeah.
There are others that are out there that are saying, no, I don't agree with this. Like they say, get a second opinion, but their opinions are suppressed. You look at our college campuses, how many conservative psychologists do you see out there? Or sociologists do you see out there? Next to zero. And if they are there, they're trying to get rid of them. This is a very dangerous position to be in. Go ahead, Heather.
I do know, I have a psychiatrist friend who, he can't, because of his career, be too out there with his views. But there are, I call him the sanest psychiatrist around. But I guess in that profession, and in, many professions, like media, there's a lot of stigma to going against the tide. So
it's very dangerous. As I said, we want people to live their full life. We want people to be happy. Yeah. But to the degree that the left, the way they're pushing this, it is extremely dangerous. It's extremely dangerous. And we're going to have a whole group of people that are going to grow up depressed. And the suicide rate, and they probably won't report on it because they want to keep it hidden from the masses. But this can't continue. It just can't continue.
You said just made me think of something I hadn't considered, Rob, which is that when there isn't freedom in the scientific community to express dissent, it is dangerous. And the sciences have been politicized, as have the arts. So this may be an example. I'm not saying I have any expertise, or frankly, I don't really have a dog in this fight, except I do care about children in general. And I think that, yes, if a doctor, if a psychiatrist disagrees with this, I wonder if they are risking their career to speak out against it. And what does that mean in terms of the integrity of science and of behavioral science, child psychiatry? I mean, how can it be a serious, how can we protect children if doctors can't be free to state their true opinions, if they're being canceled? Right.
Well, you look at what we're going through right now with COVID-19 and how, it's all Dr. Fauci. And if anyone says anything to the contrary, the media won't report it. If you say anything about COVID-19 or the vaccine on Facebook, they'll shut you down. If you question anything that he's saying, they will shut you down. The same thing with Twitter. They will shut you down. It's like, well, why can't I think outside of the box? Why do my beliefs have to be what he's saying? That's extremely dangerous. And we shouldn't be, there is no reason why we should be here at this place in society at this time. Other than the fact that the people that control the media and big tech, they're dangerous and they have to be stopped. I mean, as I said earlier, with the whole, hearing that they were having on the House with Soledad O'Brien, and she was just gleefully talking about, wow, we need to silence Fox News. I'm thinking, wait a minute. And you spoke at CNN, but you're there carrying their water, Fox News. This is extremely dangerous, guys. And I don't know how we got here. Go ahead, Heather.
Just that I hear you. I mean, I think that we don't want to silence others, but we want to keep speaking our truths and to have platforms and not be silenced ourselves. That's all. And they can't seem to handle that. And why can't we express skepticism about the election, or about whether it's healthy for a child to be, given unnecessary surgeries in terms of health when they're, under age? I mean, people don't have to agree, but when you're shutting down whole perspectives and demonizing people for voicing them,
Right.
yes, you have to really wonder, yes, is this fanaticism? And it is a form of fanaticism.
Yeah. To silence another opinion because you don't like it and you prefer your own opinion and you want that to come out there. It's really bad. It's really bad. And I go back to what the president said during his CPAC speech as to how big tech just completely shut down his side. And I was so glad that he brought up the issue with the Time magazine. So for all those naysayers that are out there saying, oh, no, everything was okay, everything was on the up and up, it's like, okay, you want us to shut down, although you talked about Russia collusion for 4 years, but look at what the folks said in Time magazine, which is so typical. They're so happy as to what they did that they had to brag about it. And quiet as it's kept. No one is saying anything. Now, the last topic I want to bring up, then we can, close out, is Andrew Cuomo. Mm. He is now admitting that he might have, been too playful. My question is, playful with what? And why now? And the media, in essence, allowed him to get away with this, just like they allowed his brother. Because if you recall, on Tucker Carlson had played a tape whereby Chris was saying that women had made accusations against him, the younger brother. So now you have the older brother. He should step down the same way Eliot Spitzer stepped down. Andrew Cuomo should step down, and he should step down as a disgraced politician, and we should never hear from him ever, ever again. Because what he has done and what the media has allowed him to do is to perpetrate a lie. Now, some will say, but he's innocent until proven guilty, and I agree with that. But if we're going to play by their rules, by believing all women, and he has not come out to say emphatically that I did not do these things. He's now coming out and saying, well, I may have done something this way. No, where there's smoke, there's fire. He should stop it right now and just step aside. He's been caught. He lied with the whole nursing home thing. And now this. Mm-hmm. He should really step aside and then just go and collect his thoughts. What I would really like to know is what his girlfriend of, I think, almost 20 years, they're no longer together. What is she thinking now? What does she know that we don't know? Was she aware of this and she just decided just to brush it off until it got to the point whereby she couldn't handle it anymore? I would really like to know what's on her mind, because I'm sure she knows what actually happened. And she's watching this, but she's quiet, being the ever so, former girlfriend who's not going to say anything because she's probably afraid of him. What are your thoughts on him?
Yeah, I'd also like to know what his daughters think of this, because I believe one of the girls he sexually assaulted is around their age. So that's got to be quite the awkward and embarrassing thing for them as well. And this was just a shortcoming of the media on the nursing home scandal. There was a lot of us that have been talking about this since last summer. And anytime that someone would bring it up, Democrats' defense would always be, yeah, but Trump. They could never admit any guilt on Andrew Cuomo and what he did in the nursing home. I understand it was very early in the COVID pandemic, but I mean, just obvious common sense would tell you that you don't put people with an infectious disease that are elderly in the same nursing home together. So that was just a common sense flaw from him. I heard Gretchen Whitmer in Michigan may be facing some heat soon for doing something similar. But he should definitely resign. The sexual assault allegation is not looking good. It's everywhere you look. I've been to all the websites today. It's pretty much the top story, besides maybe Trump speaking at CPAC. A lot of people are turning on Cuomo, and it's amazing what a difference 6 months can make.
Well, and before you jump in, Heather, here's one other thing that I've heard, that apparently, and you see Democrats are now slowly, saying he's a bad guy, he's a bad guy. And I'm hearing that this is Kamala's folks, Kamala Harris folks. They knew about this, and that they're putting this out there because they want to make certain that if she runs for 2024, he is not there on the ticket. So they want to squash him. And the Democrats are good with doing that. I remember back in the day when Bill Clinton did the same thing to all of his opponents, that they want to make certain that they cap him at the knee. I mean, he was using primetime TV to look for women. His brother was trying to sell him out there to be this, he's hot and ready to single and ready to mingle. I think this is such an embarrassment.
That that was going on while all those old people were dying horrible deaths. It's horrible. And to me, I think that the most egregious thing was the way, I well said, Andrew. I mean, anytime you tried to have a conversation with a Democrat about this, for months now, they wouldn't even consider, while they blamed President Trump for this amorphous thing, for this virus, which is all over the world. Here you have, maybe President Trump, but no human being is perfect. He made some calls that may or may not have been right. They were judgment calls, but this was clearly an egregious act of commission from a common sense perspective, as you said, to force nursing homes to accept infected elderly, that it spread like wildfire. And I would add another common sense thing is, why were those federal resources not used that Cuomo requested from Trump, that SHIP and Levitt Center? And yes, we have Chris Cuomo joking and egging on the hilarity on CNN every night. And I think this is an example of why it's very dangerous for the media to be an arm of one party. There was not any appropriate skepticism or oversight of this man and his decision making. And it went on, and how many lives were lost. I mean, it's possible that it's somewhat more nuanced. Some people believe the virus would have spread anyway, but that doesn't mean this wasn't a terrible decision that he made. And the fact is, there was a conflict of interest in having his brother cover him in a very serious matter at a time of emergency. And that is all, I think much more serious, honestly. I mean, I get that this, everybody's always interested in sexual harassment and, all of that. And that's not, I'm not saying it isn't something to be considered as well. But I think that life and death issues for many months were swept under the rug here, and they should not have been.
Right. Absolutely not. And so when we're left with looking at what he's done to the economy for New York City and done to the restaurants, refusing to let them open. And now all at once he's having a change of thought. He said, oh, okay, 25%, now 35%, now 40%. It's like, dude, you killed a lot of businesses. And now you want to come around. You want to say this only because all of the attention has been focused on you and the media. They're refusing to address it. They're looking the other direction. They don't want to talk about it. It's like, but this is a huge story. All that little stuff you guys were talking about with Trump was not huge. It was insignificant. People died. Cuomo lied and people died. Old people died. And you would get on his entire persona during that time, coming on TV and talking like he's some father. It was just that, a show. Because he knew deep down within what he was doing. And now the truth is coming out. We didn't want the numbers to come out because we were afraid of what the White House might do. It's like, how stupid can you be? If that's what I'm doing, I'm not going to tell anyone because likely it's going to get out there. So now you have Letitia James, who I don't trust. I don't trust her at all.
Well,
she's one of, and I think no possibility that she's playing in this entire Kamala wing of the party, because she's probably looking at, hey, if I get this done, she's going to owe me, and I might be able to be the attorney general one day of the United States. So all these people to me are swampers, and I don't trust them.
Well, I hear you, Robin. Who knows what anybody's motives are? But I do think it would appear that for whatever her motives, Letitia James played it very straight here and just reported what she found. So thank God for that, because I think if she hadn't, I don't think we'd be having this conversation. And it also should be said that, Cuomo, we're not inside his mind. He may not have known exactly how things would unfold. As Andrew said, it was early on, but to deny the obvious, that it was a mistake, seems very...
And to blame everybody else.
Yeah, and for the media and the Democrats, who are one, to have propped him up all that.
Right, they're one. Yep.
That's part of the problem. If journalists had been asking rigorous questions throughout, and the mainstream media had been on this and been comparing rates of deaths in nursing homes in New York to other states and questioning, well, why aren't these federal resources you requested being used? Okay, if there are good reasons they can't be, let's hear them. I was asking questions like that. I wish I had I love this platform, but I wish, I had a bigger megaphone. This is what's wrong with unquestioning kind of hero worship and a party and a media that are aligned. I think that is even more, there's even more culpability there perhaps than Cuomo's himself, arguably. And also, I don't really see how we can just sort of keep going with it without asking, well, what's being done now? What are the reforms in the nursing homes? How are people, learning from what happened? Is it all about, and again, I don't mean to dismiss the seriousness of sexual harassment, but it's like, we're talking about life and death for thousands here. It's lousy that he asked somebody to play strip poker if he did, but the real question is what's happening now. The elderly in New York, is what was done here being reversed? Are there other, resources being brought to bear? The last thing I wanted to say is too, I wonder if you can argue that Trump hate contributed to the deaths of so many. Maybe I'm speculating, but maybe the reason he didn't use those resources was he didn't want Trump to get the credit for saving anybody. I can't understand why this stuff sat empty.
Yeah. Right. That's really sad. It's really sad, but that is a good point, the hate that they have for Trump. Well, this has been a great show tonight. Want to thank all of our listeners for joining us. Want to thank again Barbara from Harlem, who was on at the top of the hour to share her experience, the things that she's gone through. And as I said before, if you would like to purchase Barbara's book, I will put it up. It's on Amazon. Definitely purchase it there. And we had on the screen also where you can reach out directly to Barbara if you would like a signed copy of her book. Now, I just noticed that when we've been having these shows, we failed to say where people could follow your work, Heather, because you are a journalist, and I know that you have done articles and you're continuing to do articles on different topics. So where can our viewers and our listeners get in contact with you or to read your articles? Oh,
thank you, Rob. Well, I am still on Twitter for the moment anyway, at @E_Robinson. And I have a website, heatherrobinson.net. So, either place.
Okay. That's heatherrobinson.net, right?
Thanks, Rob. Yes.
Okay. Well, we definitely want to, you two people, if they would like to get in contact with you, because I know that a lot of our viewers enjoy your commentary.
Thank you.
So, Andrew, do you have anything you'd like to add?
No, just come back on Tuesday. We will be back with Rhonda Furin, who is going to be on the ballot if Governor Newsom gets recalled in California to replace him. And then at the end, we have Darren Aquino, who ran for Congress, coming on. He had a relative die in a nursing home in New York.
No,
and he wants to come on and talk about that. So
maybe I could interview him. I don't mean to interrupt.
So that should be an interesting show. Oh yeah. Definitely, Heather, we'll have you on Tuesday, and you can reach out, speak with him there. So that will be David Aquino, and he'll be at the bottom of the hour with Rhonda Furin at the top of the hour. Excuse me. And on March 3rd, we'll have Pastor Greg Locke. He will be on the show, so you don't want to miss him. He will be on for the either the entire hour or just half the hour. And then Thursday, we'll have Michael Johns, the co-founder of the Tea Party, who will be on to debrief us on CPAC, the occurrences that took place at CPAC. So again, we have a full week ahead of us. Make certain that you tune in. We're on Spotify. As I mentioned, I've had that in the news feed also, whereby you can follow the replay and listen to us. And if you would like to fund us to keep our mission going, please feel free to go to, what is it again? We're on fundme.com. I'll put that up, and you can reach out to us there if you'd like to support us in our efforts to keep bringing you the news unvarnished and unbiased. We greatly appreciate anything that you can donate to the cause to assist us and to keep our stories going. So is there anything else?
I think that's just about it. A special thanks to Barbara from Harlem and BB for also joining us tonight. Be
Absolutely.
Sure to check out her book, Escaping the the expectations of low expectations. Is that what it was called?
Low expectation of racism. Yes.
Okay. There.
Low expectations.
Mm-hmm. So
check
thank
that
you
out
guys
on Amazon. Thank you,
Yes.
everyone.
Thank you. Have a good night, and we will see you again on Tuesday.